Hello and welcome to Reimagining Cyber. My name is Ben, and today we're breaking down what might be the biggest reset in cybercrime in recent years. Operation Endgame didn't just hit a single group, it broke the backbone of the cybercrime economy. But what actually changed? What fell apart? And what are the cyber criminals rebuilding as we head into the end of the year? With me is our resident cybersecurity expert, Tyler Moffitt, to take us through the entire picture. Tyler, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Now, if you could run over what Operation Endgame was and why it was such a big moment.
Yeah, seriously, like literally the biggest, largest coordinated takedown ever. And we already had a big year in 2024. And so this was even bigger, more development in 2025. So really compounding over the past couple of years because it felt like criminals sort of just ran wild with it and number going up and doing very well and successful for like decades. And it felt like, when are they going to do something? And we basically saw it. So essentially this sweeping action they did focused on the ecosystem. So it wasn't just like going after the ransomware people. Like the most damaged and headlines you read about is always the ransomware payloads and the ransomware groups, but really the ecosystem under them, right? The loaders, right? That was really the most important part, like the loaders, the botnets, distribution networks, sort of supply chain for the criminals. So we're talking like, TrickBot, Conti, Iced ID, Luma Stealer. These are things we've covered in Nastiest Malware, but the loaders are like the foundation of modern cybercrime. They deliver the info stealers, remote access malware, and eventually the ransomware, right? It all depends on these loaders, right? And so when law enforcement broke those systems, they're not hurting one gang, they're literally hurting all of them, the entire supply chain that ransomware relies on.
So if you could focus in, if you would, on what made this takedown so different.
So first, definitely the scale. This was not a targeted hit. This was like a blitz, if you will, across like dozens of infrastructures tied to initial access. And so it struck the tools that criminals use every day. Next would be the timing, right? We're in Q4 right now. It's the time when both defenders and attackers feel the maximum pressure. And organizations have skeleton crews, code freezes, limited change windows, and criminals know this, right? This is their go time, right? Endgame hit at a moment when many ransomware groups were already strained, so the impact was amplified. And I guess lastly, the depth of the disruption. Maybe we didn't realize it first, but law enforcement took over actual servers, seized control panels, identified a lot of the human operators, arrested some of them. Some are just indicted. But it created a fear, essentially, that policing entities will actually come after you, which they hadn't really had this heat, if you will, previous years. So, this infrastructure that criminals had trust for a long time now suddenly belongs to law enforcement. Like the ripple fear effect is pretty massive.
Yeah, so you mentioned the fear there. What were the other immediate fallouts for ransomware groups?
Yeah, instability, just chaos, right? They lost inventory. So with the loaders gone, there's fewer compromised endpoints to sell. So drop in quality access, if that makes sense. Access brokers lost like trust, if that makes sense. And affiliates, because of this, start jumping ship. Like Lockbit, prime example. They used to be like 2023, 2024, they're like number one ransomware the entire year. And now they can barely get any affiliates because of all the takedowns that they've had and, lack of credibility even more. Right. And then Blockbuster, then To Play, then Medusa. Everybody's losing affiliates. And that's literally the lifeblood, the bread that they need to stay alive. Because none of these groups are attacking anybody directly. They create the infrastructure and the payload and then hire affiliates to come in to conduct the attacks. And so if you have no affiliates, you have no business model, you have no income. Right. And so now we're just seeing a slurge of sloppy, low-quality attacks, right? When your delivery infrastructure is broken, operations fall apart. And so we'll see rush incidents, broken encryptors, inconsistent targeting. I mean, it's not looking great.
Yeah, that's probably the reason why some recent breaches have looked quite unprofessional, I guess.
Yeah, definitely a byproduct of what we saw with Operation Endgame. This mature, disciplined supply chain that ransomware relied on got shaken to its core, right? And when you remove this organized ecosystem and infrastructure, right, of organized loaders, you expose the lack of skill in many of the crews.
Okay, now nature abhors a vacuum. So let's talk about the replacement players. Who started to fill the gaps when it comes to ransomware groups?
So we talked about them a little earlier in the year. FunkSec, other low visibility teams, they have like small memberships, sort of closed loop affiliates. They avoid public lease sites for long periods. They stay mobile. They hit fewer victims, but they're harder to track. Instead of a single loader offering access, now we see like Telegram channels and dark web forums where brokers sort of share footholds. So they'll drop VPN credentials, cloud sessions, or info stealer logs in bulk. It's definitely more chaotic, but it is more distributed. And then, of course, can't have a podcast without talking about AI, but AI is assisting criminal operations, of course. They use the LLMs to write all their phishing pages, automate, victim reconnaissance, who they've breached, what is their data worth, all that type of stuff. It really is the beginning of AI supported ransomware as a service operations.
So you said FunkSec there. Just give me like a brief headline. Where does that fit into this?
So yeah, they're just a good example of like post Endgame group, smaller, faster, less focused brand, very opportunistic, aggressive, not polished. It's basically a shift from the large scale ransomware as a service we had seen to like, flexible micro crews, if you will.
Okay, then. So reason for celebration. The old infrastructure is gone, but what is the new infrastructure criminals are building? Must be happening.
Yeah, so info stealers are everywhere now. It's probably the new heart of cybercrime. We covered it in Nastiest Malware, like Luma, Nexus. There's tons of them out there, but modified stealers are just flooding the landscape now. They give criminals credentials, cookies, session tokens. This is really big because even if you reset a password, session tokens still authenticate you in. So if you steal those, you get in even through a password reset. You don't need a loader if you already have authenticated sessions, right? So cloud session takeovers also pretty big. So access to Azure, Google Workspace, Okta tenants, AWS consoles. These are all far more valuable than traditional endpoint foothold. These access to these accounts usually bypass many layers of security. Deep fake assisted identity bypass. This one's pretty big. So they're using synthetic IDs, fake selfies, voice clones, AI generated video to reset MFA, like calling up IT, impersonation, help desk. I mean, you can even do it for KYC, know your customer, and like, if you wanted to launder your cryptocurrency on these exchanges that require you to upload a picture of you holding an ID or your passport, just upload a fake passport, fake ID that looks like you, and it's enough to fool this stuff. So it's getting really good now, and it's being sold as a service essentially. And so fragmented ransomware as a service kits, instead of like one giant ransomware as a service operation, you now have many smaller kits that some provide scripts, other provide encryption payloads, some provide negotiation templates and stuff. It's sort of modular cybercrime now.
So it's become a bit like building with Lego.
Yeah, and we sort of saw that, like I'd say 10 years ago when you were building your ransomware page that popped up, or your ransomware note where you put in your Bitcoin address, put in how much you want to charge and when the late fee kicks in and blah, 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 blah. And then it would generate a payload for you. We're sort of seeing that modularity and convenience creep back.
You said a bit earlier on that things are getting chaotic. Can you give me a bit more depth as to why that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, the structures that kept ransomware sort of stable, number go up, happy, business model for criminals, is gone now. So without polished loaders and discipline and from the affiliate programs, you get like inconsistent targeting, sloppy encryption, broken payloads. Victims sort of have no follow-up after encryption, if that makes sense. Like it's not well done anymore. And leaks are used as pressure without real extortion plans. And sometimes you'll see attackers, or affiliates, I should say, like abandoning jobs mid-incident. They could like pull off the attack and then deal with the victim, and they're like, you know what, this isn't really working for me, and then just give up and move to another victim.
So things aren't necessarily safer, it's just more unstable then.
Yeah, it's more chaotic, and when they cause more real world damage, because these mistakes lead to bigger outages and also distrust in the ransomware credibility or ecosystem. Like a lot of people wonder if that makes sense when they hit with ransomware. If they pay the money, are they going to get their files back? And like 95% of the time, yeah, you're going to get it back. Or if no one trusted the business model, it wouldn't exist to begin with. And so for the overwhelming majority of most people, yeah, get their stuff back. But now we're getting a little more chaotic, and those concerns are arising again, if that makes sense.
Looking ahead then, what does 2026 look like after this reset?
Yeah, I would credential-based ransomware for sure. So stealers are the main entry point for ransomware now. Expect more attacks that begin with stolen cloud sessions or MFA resets or those session tokens. Pretty massive right now, for sure. Deep fake assisted social engineering, IP, so like employee impersonation, IT help desk calls, where they come in and have all that stuff reset with synthetic voices, fake videos. They'll become routine, and you're gonna have to change like tabletop exercises in preparation for your IT teams. More smaller ransomware as a service crews. So small forms will sort of appear and dissolve quickly, harder to track, less capable. Cloud tenant compromises replacing endpoint encryption. So, why encrypt servers when you can just steal the entire cloud environment? That's becoming a thing they're considering now for sure. And I do think though we will see like a cream of the crop. Somebody will come to the surface as the leader, sort of as Lockbit was, but now they've been crushed. I do believe we will sort of have one ransomware as a service leader that will emerge and consolidate all the chaos.
So then, for defenders listening, what should they be prioritizing today?
Identity hardening for sure. Number one. Easy. Identity is the new perimeter. Okay. Like most ransomware, it's an identity problem, not a malware problem. Focus on multi-factor authentication, session control, password hygiene, cloud permissions, all that stuff. You got to bolster your security posture. Next up, I guess, monitoring info stealer exposure. So stolen logs are definitely like new initial access in the market. Companies need threat intel that, tells them when their credentials show up in criminals' logs. You need to be scraping for that. Faster lateral movement detection. A lot of the times from first compromise, first machine, to, moving laterally, casing the joint, dropping a ransomware payload. That stuff used to take days, maybe in a week or two. And now it's like measured in hours or minutes even. And so there's like no buffer anymore. So rapid detection of that escalation and lateral movement is crucial, especially since we're in Q4 now. Organizations need to be especially cautious because this is, end of the year, staffing is thin, attackers know they can move faster. Combination of, unstable criminal ecosystem and end of year operational pressure is a critical period for sure.
Indeed. Tyler, thank you so much. A terrific breakdown. It really shows how deep the impact really is.
Absolutely. Happy to break it down for you and hope everybody has a good and safe rest of your year.
So as Tyler indicated there, the criminal ecosystem is rebuilding itself in real time, and we are entering the new year with a very different threat landscape than we had 12 months ago. Thanks for joining us here on the Reimagining Cyber podcast. We will be back next Wednesday. In the meantime, please do subscribe and follow us. Goodbye.